Welcome back to video number 2 of the Presentation Bootcamp. Yesterday we ended with the statement, so now that we are clear on the role of the elements, what do we do next? How exactly do we get started building the most moving presentation? And that's what I want to talk you through today. But as we get started with that, I want to share a quote with you that has been really impactful to me. Albert Einstein said, "It has become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity." This is a pretty powerful and intuitive statement by this brilliant man. And the scary thing is that Einstein said this of the technology of the early 1900s. Could you imagine what he would think of the impact of our technology today? When you stop and think about it, technology has and is growing at a rapid pace. We are able to process, access, and produce like never before in the history of our civilization. But is that a good thing? What does this mean for us as civilians? What it means is that we can get lost in the power of the tools we have available to us. And when we get lost, the gift we have to offer gets lost also. Your presentation is the giving of your opportunity, experience, expertise, perspective, and idea. But we too often let the use of our technology distort and distract from what we have to present. So how do we make sure this doesn't happen? Well, let me give you a personal example to help point us in the right direction. My oldest son, Tyler, is a few days away from turning 9, and he's in the 3rd grade. He loves anything that you can plug in or runs on batteries. He especially looks for any reason to use my computer. Last week he came home with his first research paper assignment on the Cherokee Indians. He had to write a 1-page report, create a visual project, and give an oral presentation. I was helping him with his homework the day he was telling me about this project. And with wide eyes and excitement in his voice, he said, "This is great. Let's get on your computer and get started." When he was asked to organize and communicate his thoughts and feelings, he immediately went to technology. How often do we do that ourselves? Just because we know the end result will use the power of technology, we jump right into it in the beginning. But this is not the way to make the most effective presentation. The good news for my son is that his teacher knew he would need some direction. So she included a page on the back of the project instructions that gave him guidance. At the top of this page it said, "The big questions." It was a reminder for my 9-year-old to stop, think, and answer what is the main point he is trying to communicate about this group he was researching. She added on the rest of the page sections for notes with very specific questions. You know, the who, what, when, where, why, and how questions. Again, directing my son to think through what information was needed to clearly communicate what he had found out about the Cherokee. This guidance and structure was exactly what was needed for my son to effectively organize his thoughts and communicate them in a memorable way. Once he knew what he wanted to say, then it was time to add in the technology to amplify what he wanted to say. The same is true for us in our presentations. I'm sure many of you have heard suggestions to turn off your computer when starting to write a presentation and get out a pen and piece of paper. So the idea is nothing new, but my question is, do you know what to do once you unplug and start writing your presentation? From my experience, many people don't. So that is what I want to talk through for you today. I want to cover what questions to ask yourself and what to do with your answers. It is exactly like what my son's teacher did for him. Okay, so let's roll up our sleeves and get into it. What I would like to do is briefly talk you through 4 of the key questions to ask yourself when planning your next presentation. I want to cover what they are, what you should be asking yourself, and how what you discover impacts your presentation structure. Okay. The first question is, who is your audience? This is a question I think most of us get we should be asking. But the problem is that most of us know we should ask it, but often don't, or don't completely answer this question. When you are trying to understand who your audience is, it is like seeing the trees in the forest. Most of the time, my clients generally understand who they are talking to, or the forest, but fail to get to the detailed characteristics of the people who make up that generality, the trees. This is a massive mistake because we are trying to reach specific people. The individual is whom we want to move. Even if we are looking to move masses, those masses are made up of lots of individuals. We need to understand who those individuals are. So, when we are identifying who our audience is, we need to do three things. First, we need to name specifically who will be present and listening to our presentation. This can be position or title related, or it can be naming a specific group of people. Once we do this, then we must ask ourselves what are at least 5 characteristics that describe the individuals in this group. These characteristics can be related to their background, education, decision-making practices, perspective of our issue, geography, culture, really anything that describes who they are and ultimately what will impact their view of what we have to say. I say list at least 5 as a minimum. I suggest listing as many characteristics as you can. Just make sure that they really do apply to the people who are in your audience. Finally, once you have this group named and characteristics listed, then work to create a defining statement for the individuals in your audience. Sum up what you have thought through into one sentence. This will give you a good capstone for this process and will ultimately become the foundation for your presentation. Because once you identify who is in your audience, this becomes the driving force behind your entire presentation. All the other parts that we put into our talk must speak to, resonate with, and move the person you identified in this statement. This will support everything we have to say. The next question we need to ask is, what is our audience's true need? Now, once again, many of you will be going, yeah, I've heard this before. And I agree, you probably have. But, once again, hearing it and correctly answering it and knowing what to do with the answer are two different things. So what is the true need? Well, to answer this, let me give you another quote that has forever changed the way I develop presentations. The quote goes like this: "People don't want a drill, they want a hole." Did you catch what that is saying? Let me repeat that. People don't want a drill, they want a hole. We feel just because people are looking for what we have to offer, that is what they really are looking for. But what they really want is the solution or benefits what we are offering offers to them. In reality, they are looking for the benefits of our benefits. And we often miss this level of communication. See, everything we have to offer has features. Those features create a benefit, but those benefits create additional benefits or solutions for our audience. And that is what they care about. That is their true need. Let's look at this in our drill example from the quote. One feature of a drill is that it has a really fast and sharp spinning drill bit. The benefit of this drill bit is that you can very easily get the right size hole in the material you are working with. But the benefit of the benefit is that when that hole is created, it allows your audience to build a piece of furniture that they can sell and make money from. You see what I mean? When identifying the need of your audience, you must understand the benefit of your benefit they are looking for. The power of this is that once you understand the benefit of your benefit your audience is looking for, and you effectively communicate to them that you understand this, they will immediately be attracted to you and interested in listening to everything you have to say. They will say to themselves, "This person gets me." once there, that person is ready to move where you want to take them. So if this is the result of knowing what your audience's true need is, then we want to lead off with this. Once you understand their need, use this in the first part of your presentation. Before you talk about you, before you talk about what you are offering, before you even talk about where you are taking them, show them that you get them. Then they will be ready for the rest of what you have to say. The third question we must ask as we get off our computer is, what is our competitive advantage? You see, the place where I see almost all presenters lose their audience is when they start talking through the details of the gift that is their presentation. They worry that if we don't say the right thing, that people will not want to move with us. So to combat that, we say everything and the kitchen sink. This is not the way to approach the sharing of our details. What this does is that it creates what I call noise. Noise is anything that distracts from your main message. And really positive pieces of information can be noise if they do not keep your audience engaged and moving in your direction. So, how do we avoid creating noise? Well, one way to avoid this is by talking about what makes you different. See, when you communicate how your idea, solution, opportunity, whatever, is different from what they are seeing out there, then you have brand new information to communicate. This new information will pull your audience in, even when you are sharing details. So when looking for your competitive advantages, be brutally honest with yourself. Make sure you take a good hard look in the mirror at where you are and where your competition is. Don't create something that is not there. Simply state what is true. And once you do, when you get into the thick of the details of your presentation, make sure these advantages are clearly seen. Don't spend too much time repeating what everyone else can say. Show how you are special, and people will be attracted to you. The final question I am going to highlight today is, what process of movement do you want your audience to go through? This is very important, and from my experience is almost always missed. If you don't know the path you want your audience to walk on, how will they? The three answers to think through and identify with this question are, where is my audience now? You get a glimpse of this from the who is my audience question and the statement you created there. And we'll talk about how to get their attention in video number 3. The second question is, how do I move them? This is very challenging, but when discovered is what is going to put you in that elusive, successful minority of presenters. This is so critical that I will spend both video 4 and 5 covering what to do to answer this question. The third question is, where do I want them to go? Knowing where you want your audience to be when you end your talk, and most importantly, what you want them to do in response, is so important. And frankly, simple. I mean, why are you spending time, effort, and energy to create this presentation if you don't want some response? And what is that desired response? We'll cover this in video number 6. You want this process of movement to be culminating and coming to a crescendo at the end of your presentation. Go out with a bang, so to speak. See why it's so important to get off our computer? We need to let our humanity, our minds rise to the top and not be exceeded by our technology. Well, we have covered a lot of ground and we are now ready to start actually writing the presentation. So tomorrow, we will answer the question, how do I open my presentation? And give you an idea of how to do that in a way that immediately makes what you have to say stick. If you are interested in getting off your computer, but would like some help on how to start this process of developing an effective presentation, you should check out Spotted Rhino Design's one-on-one customized presentation review called the Presentation Pulse. In this process, you will have an actual virtual meeting with a presentation guru, so you can talk through the answers to some of these questions discussed today. You can access it by clicking the link at the bottom of today's video email.